Okay. Well, it is definitely my pleasure this morning to be interviewing Dr. Sarah Wayland. Dr. Wayland has a company called Guiding Exceptional Parents, where she implements RDI with parents of children, parents who have a child on the spectrum. She has an incredible background, and I wasn't actually aware of Dr. Whalen's background until I got a copy of this book called Technology Tools for Students with Autism. It's a wonderful book. I'm suggesting you all go out and buy it right now. But I did want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Whalen's background. For a while, she was a senior research scientist at the University of Maryland Center for Advanced Study of Language. She has studied at Brandeis University, and she has a PhD in cognitive psychology from there. She's also been at Northeastern University, the University of Maryland School of Medicine, and now at the University, and then also at the University of Maryland College Park. Uh, um, Dr. Wayland is very active in the local disability community where she lives. She's on the executive committee of Individual Differences in Learning Association and board member of Special Education Citizens, and it goes on, but I think what provokes me the most is actually that for a decade she worked designing those annoying telephone voice systems that we all hate too much. So when you listen to this, you can email her back and say, I can't believe you did that. um, Anyway, she's also involved with Parents Encouraging Parents, which sounds like a wonderful organization to me. But I wanted to talk to Dr. Wayland this morning for a little bit about this book that she has co-authored. And then I also would like for her to talk a little bit about her journey with autism and what it's been like as a parent to have a child on the spectrum. But um, Dr. Whalen, what are the pivotal moments in your life related to autism? Could you start there?
Sure. Um, I'm going to start actually with my degree at Brandeis University and the work I was doing there with Dr. Arthur Wingfield. And we were studying language development, and we were actually working with people who had aphasia subsequent to a brain injury. And I was studying language development or language recovery for those people, and trying to come up with ways of analyzing exactly which cognitive systems were impaired, and then designing therapies that targeted at those systems. That was a long time ago, long before I had children and so on. And of course, as part of my my work with Dr. Wingfield, then I had to take a lot of courses on language development and you know, development, human development, and so on. So fast forward about 12 years, and I had my first child, and when he got to be about 2, I was watching how he was acquiring language, and I thought, boy, those theories are all wrong. They don't capture how my child is acquiring language. Well, it turned out actually he was not the typical child. It turns out he actually is on the autism spectrum. And with my N of 1, then I had determined that those theories were all wrong. So it took me a little while. We knew something was up with our child. We kept trying to get help, but he's so-called high-functioning autism. And so it took us a while to get help for him. We started at 2.5, and people told us we were being overprotective, and he was clearly very smart, and it would be fine. And by the time he was 4.5, finally his preschool teacher told us that something was up. And we went and had him evaluated, and they diagnosed him with a language learning delay, again, not with autism, and also with ADHD and attentive type. So that was about the time his little brother was born. And his little brother has a very similar profile in some ways and different in other ways. And when he got to be about 2, we knew we were heading down that same path again, and we said, we're not waiting this time. We knew what to do this time. And so we had him evaluated, and when he was 3.5, he was evaluated with what was called a profile consistent with a child who will later be diagnosed with autism. And
my goodness.
and then when we were telling people about our older son, they said, well, he's much more classically autistic than your younger child is. And so we went back and he then got that diagnosis. So that is the personal story that got me interested in it. However, through all this, of course, I'm taking my background in how people learn language, how children develop, and I'm looking at my own children and thinking about how they develop, and also what I know about brain structure and how they work. So one of the things that was really hard for me as a parent was that I had been doing all this work in cognitive neuroscience and cognitive psychology, studying brain structures. And I felt like the work that clinicians were doing with my children had a whole different vocabulary to it, a whole different approach, that the way people talked about what they were doing didn't seem to relate at all to what I knew was true from the neuroscience research about how the brain structures worked and so on. And I was constantly frustrated by this. And finally, I decided that what I had to do was to just view them as two entirely separate fields and not even try to relate the two of them. That was the only way I could function. So then we got involved with RDI through our local school system. Prince George's County Public Schools offers RDI to all parents who have children with social communication disorders free of charge. And it's a wonderful pilot program, and we were part of the very first pilot program. And as I was diving into that, I realized that the language they were using in RDI was the language I had been trained in as a cognitive psychologist and as a neuroscientist. And I was very excited about that because suddenly I could take the work that I knew was true in neuroscience and apply it to my work with my children. Furthermore, I loved the approach because it very systematically broke down the stages of development and talked about where things would go wrong, what might be wrong with each child, and so on, and helped us. And we started doing RDI with both our children, especially focusing on our younger child, who in some ways is more severely impaired in sort of a more traditional sense, but we worked on it with both kids and started seeing dramatic improvements. And after we had been doing that for a couple of years, I said, I've got to help other parents figure this out and learn how to do this themselves. And so I've been going through getting trained to be an RDI consultant, and I'm really excited to be working with parents, because the other part of my journey through this, you know, I have this professional side, and but the other thing that's really hard as a parent is that you do feel very alone. And one of the things I really, really love about RDI is you empower parents to feel like they are parents again, as opposed to somebody who just takes your child to a clinic and lets somebody else do things to your child. And very often you're told you can't participate in sessions and so on. So I really, really appreciated that aspect of it. And in fact, even before I had decided to be an RDI consultant, I had decided that I wanted to start my own business supporting parents. And when I realized I could also be an RDI consultant, I thought it was a perfect marriage of my desire to support parents and, you know, a nice way to have a very methodical approach to remediating autism. So that's it.
And you know, it's been really exciting for me because I remember when it's Prince George County, isn't it? Yeah,
Prince George's County.
Yeah, Prince George's County, when the idea was presented through Betty Adkins, who works there, I got so excited by the idea that a public school could take RDI and actually do something with it, getting teachers, professionals, and parents all on the same page. So for me, and that, you know, and then I met you shortly after that when you came in. But one of the things that has impressed me is that with the background you have been able to bring that into the RDI curriculum. I know I know you just jumped onto that a little bit, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, if you wouldn't mind. How your work at Brandeis.
Oh,
impacted you? I'm sorry, I was a little bit confusing there, but I was thinking about your work at Brandeis and how that has, how those two have melded together with RDI.
that has been a very interesting part of the process for me. The approach that we used actually was called the single, what was it, uh, group single case methodology. And this approach is a little different than typical research. One of the challenges when you're working with a population that has neurological impairments is that the impairments, you can't, it's not a controlled experiment. You don't know what the damage is, you can't control what the damage is. And when you devise a generalized therapy that's one size fits all therapy, you're not always addressing the specific issues that are having an impact on that person. And so what we did is a battery of tests to try to figure out what the exact issues were that were facing that particular person. So, and we anyway, that is actually really, really similar to what happens in RDI. So with RDI, what we do is we do the RDA, and then we figure out exactly which issues are impaired, and then we work to address those as a plan for remediating function overall. That approach is not, I mean, people do publish with that. It's somewhat controversial. And I don't know. I like the approach a lot because I think it acknowledges that each of us come to the world with our own individual biology and addresses the way that that biology can vary from person to person while still providing a very methodical approach to addressing the issues.
And of course, I love it.
For some reason.
For some reason, I love it too. I'd like for you, could you talk a little bit about this book? I'm going to hold it up again. Everybody go buy the book, Technology Tools.
Yeah, it's a great
Oh,
book.
we have two. We can have our books saying hello to each other. But really do go out and buy this book. Give us a description of the book and your involvement in its conception and then the later publication.
Okay, so the book was actually originally conceived by my co-editors, Katerina Bozer and Matthew Goodwin, who had been serving on the Autism Speaks Innovative Technology something. I can't remember what the A was.
Okay.
But anyway, it's a group that was part of Autism Speaks that was designed to get researchers who were working on technologies to support people with autism and allow them to do research to determine whether the technologies actually were going to be beneficial. And it was also designed to help get the word out about what technologies were available. What Matthew and Katerina realized is that there was a gap between people who were developing these systems and the research, and that it was hard to get the two communities talking to each other. And this book was their attempt to facilitate communication between those different groups. Furthermore, they wanted to make sure that teachers, the people who would actually be implementing the technology, were also represented, as well as people on the spectrum, explaining why the tools might be useful. So we have chapters by Stephen Shore. We have a chapter, or it's an introduction by John Elder Robeson. And for our chapters, we have researchers, developers, and educators all have contributed to this book, and clinicians as well. And one of the sort of guiding principles of the book is universal design for learning, which is an approach to constructing an educational environment that appropriately scaffolds the environment so that people can be successful. And the principle of universal design for learning is that you need to accommodate the environment so that the person can get the information in the way that's best for them, as well as expressing themselves in the way that's best for them, and also in a way that makes the material engaging for them. So universal design for learning is something that RDI does every day. And all the chapters in the book refer to that methodology for helping educate students. And the nice thing about universal design for learning is you can use it for people across the range. So it works for gifted kids, it works for typically developing kids, it works for kids with disabilities, and everything in between. So it's a nice approach. We've got chapters. There are different sections. The first couple of chapters are on policy research and implementation, and that really lays out, and one of those chapters really describes this universal design for learning approach that I was telling you about. Then we have a section on classroom tools that has chapters by both researchers and by teachers, and I like that chapter because it's very practical. There's a section on virtual reality and also on using robots to teach students. Then there's a third section that's on language tools, and that was actually the section that I helped co-edit, and one of the chapters I also helped write. And this one has information on teaching language at a lot of different levels, from semantics and vocabulary all the way down to spelling, sound, correspondences, and phonology. And one of the things I did want to emphasize is that there are a lot of approaches described in this book. It is going to be hard to implement them without somebody who kind of knows what they're doing. So for example, the chapter we wrote was on technology supporting literacy and autism. And one of the things that's really important to remember is that just because one tool works for one student doesn't mean it's going to work for another student. And you want to be working with somebody who understands exactly what issues the student is struggling with so that they can choose an intervention that will be appropriate. And it was our hope with this book that we would provide the tools that would allow you to choose appropriate interventions. The next section is on social skills and emotion regulation, and I love some of the work that's in there. In particular, there are technologies, for example, that help students monitor their own degree of dysregulation, for example. So Matthew Goodwin has actually been working on a tool that it's a glove that you wear on your hand, and it senses sweat and heart rate and temperature as a way of just giving you feedback about how you're feeling, because sometimes people aren't very aware that they're starting to get upset about something, and so this glove allows them to get input about that. So I think that work is so interesting, and
I think the interesting thing about his work is that that could be helpful for a variety of diagnoses.
You bet. Yeah, anybody who has trouble recognizing that their regulation is disordered, then yeah, exactly. I think it could help a lot of different people. So yeah, I love Matthew's work on that, and so the chapters there, talk about that, and also about social group programs that so that's the fourth section. The fifth section is on data collection tools, and this is for people who are collecting data both in the clinic and at home, where you're trying to track what's going on with your client, but you don't want to interrupt the therapeutic session. And these tools give you a way of logging data that don't require you to be standing there with your clipboard and writing everything down, which really interferes with the therapeutic process.
It does.
And so that section is also really helpful, and they describe tools you can use in the clinic and at home. So it's a nice set of chapters on that topic. The next chapter or next section is on teacher training and practical implementation, and this has input again from researchers and from teachers talking about how to implement this in the classroom, one at a public school, one at a non-public school, and just talking about tools they use for evaluating different technologies and barriers they ran into. The infrastructure to support the technology is a real issue. Teacher training is a real issue. And these chapters go into how these different schools tried to overcome those barriers, which were significant in both cases. And I've heard that over and over again from teachers, how hard it is to get technology running in the schools. It breaks a lot. And if you don't have appropriate IT support, it's really hard. So you need to make sure that, the IT staff can support you and get everything in place for that. And then
That's
the final
amazing.
section. Yeah, it's very hard. I hadn't appreciated how hard it was until I started reading these chapters. So, the last section is on transition to the workplace, and these describe tools that can support adults as they move into the world of work and have to manage themselves appropriately there. So that's kind of an overview of the book.
And I love that you've worked with Stephen Shore, who I know and who has really been helping a lot of adults think about how do you transition into the workplace? How much do you share? How much do you not share? So providing these tools as an extra support it's just really wonderful. So I'm really excited about this book that you've been involved in, and thank you for the great review of it. Let me ask you, what is your current passion?
My current passion, as I said earlier, is helping parents. I mean, that's really what my passion is helping parents regain a sense of family and, a sense of being able to parent their children effectively. That really is what drives me in every aspect of my work right now.
Sarah, when I do an interview like this, it's always exciting because things come out that I wasn't aware of, and so it's like, oh, I didn't know you did that. Is that right? So just a lot of great information. I do like to end though by asking you, is there anything you wish I had asked you that I didn't ask you? Anything you'd like to talk about?
um, I can't think of anything. You've done a nice job. You've given me a great venue to talk about the things I really love. I mean, I do enjoy working with families a lot. I enjoy working with the children and watching how they grow and respond. When you give them a voice, and that's what some of what this technology stuff is about, is giving children a voice, and empower them to do well, with the tools we have. I do think technology has, actually here is something that I do want to cover. Technology is a double-edged sword. So, in our modern world, there's a lot of technology, and in some cases, especially with children on the spectrum, it can be a refuge from actual interactions. And used inappropriately, technology, I think, can hinder social connection. I think used appropriately, technology can be a wonderful help to people. But it's something that's a real challenge for clinicians and parents and anybody working with children, especially those on the spectrum, have to learn how to manage. I do think that technology is part of our modern world and that we are going to have to learn how to integrate it into our world. But I think we need to be very mindful of not letting it take over our world. So, technology has a place.
Yeah, it does, and I believe it has a place too. And as you know, in RDI, we do a lot with technology as well.
You sure do.
But it does have a place, and I appreciate you saying that, because technology isn't a quick fix. It's part of a larger design, and so thank you for mentioning that. Okay, well, I would just like to say to everybody who has had the privilege of listening to you today, log on to Guiding Exceptional Parents, buy the book, Technology Tools. Here we go, Technology Tools for Students with Autism. And I personally know Sarah's work, and I can recommend it. And I hope that you'll enjoy working with her. Thank you for your time this morning, Sarah.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking with you.